Welcome, Sens Talk.
Here comes Sens with a pass across to the stars. He bats it in. Tim Stutzler wins it for Ottawa. Ridly Greig is going to put the finishing touches on an Ottawa win. See you later. Go Sens, go.
Welcome to Sens Talk. My name is Brandon Plant, and I am your host. After an embarrassing loss last night to the Buffalo Sabres, Steve Staios and the Ottawa Senators have thrown us a bone as they have extended a young piece of the future for your Ottawa Senators, as Ridly Greig, the Riddler, has extended with your Ottawa Senators on a 4-year, $3.25 million per year deal. That's $13 million in total. This makes Ridly Greig an Ottawa Senator for the next 5+ years, and the best part about it is that after this contract is up, in about 5 years, he will be an RFA at the end of this contract. So this is 5+ years of control plus more, because worst case, we get into an arbitration scenario with Ridly Greig 5 years from now. Well, guess what? At the very least, he'll be back with us for 1 more year as an RFA. So a lot of team control on, frankly, a deal right now where, and we'll get into it later in this video, where there's people that are saying it might be a bit of an overpayment, might be a little bit too much. In reality, it's not. I'm going to break down why that's the case. But let's just play devil's advocate and say that this is a bit of a high cap hit for a player right now that is struggling, to be honest. He is not doing the best, but again, he is a young player. So you're putting a bet on the player itself, and there's a lot to like in this player, even if he struggled at times this year. But remember, he was still playing on his entry-level deal. He was set for a payday, and he certainly got one here. But once again, you might look at the cap hit and be like, oh, that's a little bit too much. Not really. Look, the comparables for him right now are guys like Dakota Joshua, Adam Lowry, Cole Perfetti. That is, in my opinion, more than fair comparisons for AAV. It's frankly going to be a bargain potentially for the Ottawa Senators for a couple of reasons we're going to get into in this video, but primarily the cap's going up. You got to remember that. So, for a guy like Ridly Greig, who, again, not the greatest start to the year for sure, but overall, he's still very young, a very high ceiling. He's playing a lot of top 6 minutes right now. They clearly see him as a guy like that, but more so, he's a guy that can play in all scenarios, which we'll talk about soon. The point very simply is you don't get a lot of Ridly Greigs on your team, especially with the fact that he has that chippiness effect to him as well. He's a gritty, he's a rat, whatever you want to call him. He's a very gritty type of player. He's the exact type of player that you want to have on your team, but you don't want to play against. That is so valuable in its own right. But again, if you're making money, similar to Dakota Joshua, Cole Perfetti, that's more than fair for a guy like Ridly Greig, especially considering the fact that this is for 4 years. This is a 4-year contract extension. Those guys are on like 2-3 year deals. So this is a very good deal for a lot of Senators with the chance to become a bargain. Again, worst case, Ridly Greig is a middle 6, third-line guy, putting up 30-40 points a year, making $3.25 million. Honestly, that's about average for the National Hockey League. So the floor is average. The ceiling has immense potential. That's why I really like this deal. AFP Analytics says the AAV is fair value already, with the extra term making this a good deal for Ottawa. Again, the analytics just kind of proves my point here, where with the cap, expected to go up and up and up in the next few years here, and by a substantial amount. Since COVID, now they're really able to bump that up. It's really stagnated because of COVID as of late. Expect there to be a lot of cap space to play with, so don't be worried about the cap space. But if you are, and we're close to that cap hit, deals like this will make things much more easier for Ottawa, because you have a good player that probably in a few years will be producing 30-40 points at the minimum, I would guess. That's kind of what we expect from Ridly Greig at the minimum. If everything works out in that regard and he continues to develop, it's a home run. And at the worst case, 30-40 points, $3 million or so a year. Not bad whatsoever. That's pretty solid. And at the worst, average in the National Hockey League. Now, this year, Ridly Greig has played in 37 games, only 12 points, 6 goals in those 12 points. But if you really take a look at the player of Ridly Greig, you're not paying for the points only. You're paying for the whole package. Again, he has that chippy, ability as well. He likes to chirp and whatnot, but he also can play in all scenarios. He can play on your power play. He can play on your penalty kill. He's a Swiss Army knife player, and those are so valuable for any team. This year, he's averaged just under 16 minutes of ice time per game. During that roughly 16 minutes or so per game, he's getting roughly 1:30 on the power play and 1:19 on the penalty kill. So he's averaging between 3 to 5 minutes or so. Sometimes there's going to be more, sometimes there's going to be less. But in that frame, 3 to 5 minutes per game, Ridly Greig is on the special teams. So this is a very valuable player for the Ottawa Senators already. Remember, he's young. He's 22 years old, already being trusted into, power play duty and penalty kill duty. That tells you all you need to know about how this, franchise, Steve Staios, Travis Green, views Ridly Greig right now and for the future. Right now, you can see it on the ice, and for the future, you can see it with the contract extension. Now, Ridly Greig this season, again, players like this on your third line, this is one of those players where he's an energy guy. He's like a wrecking ball out there. He's going to throw the hits. He's going to dive for the blocks, and it shows that in the stats. This season, he is 9th among Sens forwards in hits per 60 with 6.61 per game, or 63 in total this year so far, and 11th in blocks per 60 with 1.78 per game, or 17 in total. Both rates are a tad below career average, but again, he's been thrusted into a top 6 role. When you're in a top 6, you're not really focused more on the physical side like you are more on the bottom 6. You're more focused on the offensive side of things, especially, a guy like Ridly Greig. He's played a lot of minutes with a guy like Brady Tkachuk, for example, Tim Stützle at times. That's going to be a lot more of a skill-based role in those type of scenarios. So that's why that's what I attribute anyways to those numbers dropping a little bit, and not by much, literally by a few. So it's not a crazy drop-off. The physicality is still around his average, but I just thought that was a little interesting. But again, I wanted to say that because he has played a lot. It's a good segue, to be honest. He's played a lot of minutes in, the top 6. And I think that is a big indication on this long-term extension and why they have such trust in this player. They see him as a guy that can play everywhere. They see him as a guy that can absolutely be a potential top 6 guy as well. Look, he's a former first-round pick. He's a guy that, again, looking at his NHL career, 129 games, roughly 50 points, 47 to be exact. That's not bad at all for a guy that's only 22 years old, still developing and still really getting into the groove in the National Hockey League, has just played over 100 games. So not exactly a seasoned veteran by any means. So the potential is there. We've seen it already, and he can play like a veteran in tough situations. Again, I keep on saying this. The power play and penalty kill time, the fact that this guy per game, he's playing roughly 16 minutes or so this year, getting 3 to 5 minutes of those 16 minutes on special teams. That says all you need to know about the value he brings for the Ottawa Senators now, and especially in the future when those point totals should pick up as he gets more and more comfortable and more acclimated to the National Hockey League game. Again, remember, young players take time to develop. It takes time for them to get into a groove. And the fact that he's already putting up a decent amount of points as a third-line guy, that's pretty good in my books. And again, it should only continue to rise. I mean, again, slow start to the year, 12 points this year. But, he's still on pace for roughly 30, 40 points this year, right? So, on a down year, he's still putting up the points you would want from a guy making roughly $3 million. So that's kind of why I'm going on this tangent about, people wondering, oh, this is too much money. No, it's actually very fair value already. He's so valuable for this team that he, Ridly Greig definitely deserved a nice paycheck and a nice pay raise anyways, and he got it. And more so, this has the potential, because of that term, to be a very, very good value deal for the Ottawa Senators. More so than it already is, in my opinion. Now, a couple of things I also wanted to mention before I kind of get into the Twitter comments, kind of segueing back into the debate around whether or not this was a good contract extension. I think it was. Spoiler, if you couldn't tell by now. I really also want to take a look at the defensive side of things for Ridly Greig. Again, the points are going to come. He's already on track right now. Yeah, in a bit of a dip of a year, no doubt about it. Still putting up, for a third-line guy, not bad numbers whatsoever, and that should only get better as he gets more and more games in the National Hockey League. The points will come. We've seen he can score, slap shot goals, of course, to the empty net, but just in general, he's a good playmaker. There's a reason he's on that first line at times. But the defensive side of things as well, there's a reason they really, really like this player. He's a very strong two-way player. He's so smart with the puck. He can score, he can defend, he can do it all. His Corsi for percentage is above 51% as well, which means more often than not, more than half the time when he's on the ice, the Ottawa Senators have possession of the puck, which is a very good indicator. He's a strong player on both sides of the ice. He's not a defensive black hole by any means. And again, I kind of mentioned this 1,000 times. He can play anywhere. He's a center and a winger. Now, I would really like to see him, get more minutes as the center, which we'll talk about in my thoughts in a few minutes. Hint, hint. And again, I want to mention this, he has like a 51% face-off rate this year, which is 3-4 points above his average in his NHL career. So that part of his game is also improving. But he also can play on the wing. He's got some nice speed as well. I spoke about it in my last video last night after the loss of the Buffalo Sabres. Ottawa right now does not have any speed coming from the wing, so Ridly Greig does provide that as well. So in both ends of the ice, he has immense potential. We're already seeing that potential on full display, particularly again in the special teams and particularly on the defensive side of things. He can handle his own, and the points will come. We've already seen he can do it. Now, a couple of Twitter comments. Oh, actually, I just want to say this. In his NHL career, just so you have the basic outline of the player as well, he's played 129 career games, 21 goals, 26 assists for 47 total points and 100 penalty minutes. Yeah, this guy's going to get a lot of penalty minutes. Be ready for that with this guy. But some Twitter comments I really wanted to get to. There's a couple of comments in particular. I asked you guys to reply to a tweet for this video just to kind of gauge how Sens fans are feeling about this extension. And as usual, it's basically 50-50 split. So at Rule2Trucker says, based on other past signings, it's a bit on the high side. As an example, he mentions Josh Norris. At least the term is shorter and the dollars are easier to swallow if it doesn't work out. Fair, but again, even in the worst case scenario where he hasn't reached that ceiling like we expect him to hit, I mean, again, in a top 6 role, he can hit 50 points in a couple of years, in my opinion. But again, even in that middle 6 role where he's likely going to be 30, 40 points at this rate is roughly, or frankly, is league average. With the cap going up, will eventually be below league average when he's on this contract. So I get the immediate thought that, this might be a little high, but when you really take a look at it, look at the projections for the cap and the cap space we're going to have, it's really not that bad. At Crag S13 says, good deal, not a crazy risk for the Sens, and he likely got a few extra bucks added to his AAV by going 4 years. Completely agree on that part. I don't think it's a slam dunk for the team, but I expect he will live up to the deal. And that's also a very fair critique. I mean, I might be a little too overzealous in saying that Ridly Greig is going to hit that ceiling. He might not. But like the Sens fan said, even at the worst case scenario, he should at the very least live up to this deal. So that's why I have no issue with it at all, especially again with massive cap increases expected in the next few years for sure, and with him already at roughly league average for his production, what he brings to the table, and for his age. I mean, especially for his age, this is a great deal. I mean, this is a young guy. You would have thought he would have went more of a bridge kind of scenario like Shane Pinto. It's great to see a young guy sign long-term here in Ottawa, want to stay as an Ottawa Senator and be part of the solution. That's great to see. Now, my thoughts to wrap this video up, I've kind of said it all. I love the signing. I love Ridly Greig. I'm a big fan of his, and I think he's going to be a big part of Ottawa's future, particularly there in their, top 9. But the best part about him is he's versatile. He can play on the wing. He can play down the middle. He can play on your power play. He can play on your penalty kill. He can do it all. He chirps. He scores. He gets people agitated. He's exactly what you want as an Ottawa Senator. I can absolutely see a future where if there is a cap crunch in the future, which definitely is possible, Josh Norris might be dealt. This is a guy where he's always been put in the trade rumors, and frankly, it does kind of make sense if we aren't, a cap crunch with Shane Pinto hopefully locked up and now Ridly Greig, he would be the odd man out. So I could see a scenario where if Norris is dealt for cap reasons, Pinto is up there on the second line. We've already seen that often this year. And Norris on the third, which is a little shocking to be honest, and Ridly Greig as the permanent third line center. So this gives you that potential as well to have some flexibility in your lineup if you have to make some tough decisions down the road. So again, with the cap going up and his potential to be at the very least a middle 6 guy, we've already seen he could be a middle 6 guy to be honest with you. This is a good deal for both sides with a chance to be a bargain for your Ottawa Senators in the not too distant future. Now, with that, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. As always, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of conversation and a lot of debate. So I'm looking forward to that, of course, down below as usual. I'll be replying to every single comment as I always do. Now, with that, thank you all for watching. I appreciate your support. I will see you tomorrow afternoon or evening, I guess, after Ottawa and the Pittsburgh Penguins battle in a pivotal game where Ottawa looks to get right back into that playoff race. With that, I'll see you in the next one. Go Sens, go.